Meeting to order here. You all have minutes from the last meeting. Is there any amendments to the minutes? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? At this time, we'll go around and we'll introduce everyone. Kyra, we'll start with you.
Kyra Helming, Senate Republican Fiscal Analyst.
Chris Garten from Clark County, representing Clark and Floyd County in southeastern Indiana.
Atlantis Richter, Fiscal Analyst, House Republican Caucus.
Representative Craig Snow, District 22, which is mostly Kosciuszko County and a little bit of Wabash County.
Eric Gonzalez, House Democrat, Fiscal Analyst.
Gregory Porter, House District 96, Indianapolis.
Krista Ricci, Senate Republican Fiscal Analyst.
Ryan Mishler, Senate District 9, North Central Indiana.
Jeff Thompson, House District 28, parts of Hendricks, Boone, Montgomery counties.
Joe Habig, Fiscal Policy Director, House Republicans.
Chad Ranney, State Budget Director.
Courtney Everett, Deputy Budget Director.
David Nizgotsky, Senator from St. Joseph County, taking in South Bend and New Carlisle.
Hope Tribble, Director of Fiscal Policy for the Senate Democratic Caucus.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Fadi Kadura, Senate District 30, north side of Indianapolis.
And I'm Ed Delaney, House District 86, north side of Indianapolis.
Lisa Agilbert, Deputy Budget Director.
Good morning. Randhir Jha, Chief Economist for Legislative Services Agency. Morning, Mitchell Baum, Fiscal Policy Analyst for the Senate.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to introduce Chancellor Rome.
Reflecting on what I wanted to say to this group today and to the state, and I was fortunate to have conversations with several of the members of this committee. And what I would like to share is the level of camaraderie and respect that I've seen among these members on this committee. This committee does not behave like we see on the federal level, or the acrimony and the divide. I witnessed firsthand in the time you've been here, people reaching across aisles, and true friendships from folks from different affiliations. We can be a model for the country if we continue to do this good work. Continue to have the business of the state in public forum. That's so important, so the public can see firsthand that things aren't always as we see on the national level. So I'm taking back to my campus a sense of optimism that this country is not doomed, that we're going to do some good things. I have been inspired by you, each and every one of you, and I want to thank you for that. I'm going to share this perspective with everyone on this campus and in this region. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Chancellor. I just wanted to thank you for hosting us, and you have a beautiful campus, and I enjoyed the conversation. And as I told you last night, I've been to Richmond one time, been to this campus one time, and it was in 2014 or 15, and this is my second time. So thank you again for hosting us. Everyone has a proposed agenda. Are there amendments to the agenda? Representative Porter.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, committee, in light of the crisis that Hoosier families are facing here in Indiana, I'd like to propose an addition to the agenda to propose a motion to assist Governor Braun and the State Board of Finance to take steps within their legal authority to provide financial assistance for SNAP recipients and food banks in our state. We do have adequate resources to provide that. And the motion, Mr. Chairman, should read as this. In light of the SNAP funding crisis, I move that State Budget Committee, speaking in a unified voice, encourages and supports the Governor and the State Board of Finance to take concrete action under their authority to provide funding to SNAP recipients and food banks. That is the motion.
Senator Skotsky.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Representative Porter, I'd like to applaud your efforts to provide encouragement to Governor Braun in these times of uncertainty regarding our Hoosier citizens' most basic needs of putting food on their table. I think any type of assistance that we can provide, encouragement we can provide, I think this is a resolution that's positive and good standing, and one I can stand behind, and I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
Just like to note for the committee that in order to do what Representative Porter is suggesting, would certainly have to augment a fund via the general fund, and then I think, as you mentioned, Representative Porter, State Board of Finance money from wherever we've augmented that $112 million a month, and move it via the State Board of Finance over to FSSA in order to effectuate this motion.
All right, well, I guess we'll vote on the motion then. So,
Can I respond to that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been done in the past. Governor Daniels has done it. Other individuals have done it in the past. So this is not unprecedented. But what we want to do is put the tools in the tool chest so that you guys can do the augmentation and for those said dollars to FSSA. I know there was $300 million in the budget to take care of FSSA, DOC, and Department of Child Services. But it's imperative that we do something, give the tools, with the governor and that said committee to provide services and help individuals in the disarrayment of the federal government. It is heart-failing that even here in Richmond, I learned last evening that those are individuals who may not get their EBT cards filled. Restaurants are helping them by bringing it in and you get a meal for you and your family. Even this campus we sit on has a food bank. Earlham College has a food bank for students. So for us to do this, I think it's very important. It's just to help, to assist, to give an avenue for our governor and for the State Board of Finance to move forward to take care of Hoosiers in the coming weeks. That is my proposal, and like I said, other states are doing it. I think Colorado's done it, Louisiana's done it. So other states are doing it because they understand that we as a state need to do something. People are doing it at the local level. Cities are doing it. Why not the state of Indiana? And with that, I end with a period.
Senator Skotsky.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just want to clarify, from my understanding, this resolution is not actually creating formal action, correct? It is just providing a motion for encouragement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
Thank
it's
you.
not physically doing anything, but we're offering in the time if assistance is necessary, we are saying that we will be there. That's my understanding of this.
I got a question for Director Rainey. So is this something the administration can do, whether it goes into this agenda or not?
Yeah, so I apologize, Representative Porter. I think I misunderstood initially. So I think, if I'm correct, you were referring to the frog fund that was put into the budget, $300 million that FSSA would have access to via Board of Finance, which I've been referring to as fragmentations as opposed to augmentations. But that $300 million is available in that fund. However, I would like to note, again, for the committee, that the purpose behind that $300 million is to cover shortfalls at DOC, DCS, FSSA, in year 2 of the budget, the budgets of those 3 agencies were reduced by over $340 million. And so with that, I mean, the administration would have the authority to do this absent any action by the committee today, to answer your question, Senator.
All right, any other discussion? Senator Cadora?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Rainey, to confirm, I think wasn't the most recent revenue report didn't indicate that we overcollected about $700 million, one of the recent revenue reports as a state?
No, the exact number I think is closer to 220 million above the budget plan.
Above the budget plan.
For year to date.
For year to date. So maybe I was looking at a different forecast, maybe by to the end of the year. But you said 200 and how much?
Don't quote me on the exact, I believe it's 220-ish year to date collection above budget plan.
And I think it's, well, from a fiscal perspective, I do understand that sometimes there are certain influences that makes it collect money at a certain point of time, and then it equalizes or normalizes towards the end of the fiscal year. I understand that, but I think this committee did augment dollars because it was authorized in legislation for the IEDC, for example, in the past. And I think this is, to me, this is not a partisan issue at all. It's just that, unfortunately, if Washington, D.C., they're not getting their acts together, and people will be hungry in the state of Indiana. I think the responsible thing for us to do as legislators and as a committee is truly to work with the governor's office and be sure that, at least for that upcoming month, hopeful until they reopen the federal government, that no one in our state goes hungry. I'll conclude by saying this. Last Saturday, I volunteered at a food pantry in my area, and I volunteer once a month on a Saturday, the 3rd Saturday of the month. Normally, they serve 100 families each weekend. Last weekend, they had over 250 families that showed up with little children, with pregnant women, and so on. So I've seen it firsthand, at least at my small community and neighborhood, where people are start struggling with these issues. So I would really encourage the committee to, even if it's a short period of time, even for 30 days, if we consider that until hopefully DC opens back up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Representative Delaney?
Yeah, a question for Mr. Rainey. I'm sorry. How literally could this be done? To whom could the governor and the state finance board decide to transmit funds in order to, I assume, to help the food banks? That's my assumption. That's who would get the money. But I'm just guessing. So who would send the money to whom is my question.
Yeah, so that is a great question. So the way SNAP benefits in particular work, it's done through a third-party provider. So unlike a lot of federal programs where the state fronts the money out of the general fund and then draws down from the feds, this is actually a program where the third-party provider sends the benefits out to the recipients via the SNAP cards. The money flows directly from the federal government through them to the provider. So the state actually sees none of this money. So we would have to find a mechanism through which money from the state could be directed to the provider. I'm not sure of those details at this moment.
I think this is very important. We're lucky, we're blessed, I think, by a network, Gleaners and other groups all over this state who do a wonderful job on the food pantries. So one option is to get money to them. Is there a mechanism to get money to them to deal with what's obviously going to be a huge demand? People are going to go into the Kroger store on Monday and their card's not going to work. They're not sitting here talking with us or reading the newspaper. They're trying to get some food. And some of them probably be there on the 1st, which is not very far off. So they're going to walk in, hand their card, and they're going to be told there's nothing on it.
Yeah, so
so can we get, you say you have one alternative to get money into the provider so that those cards would have something. That's an alternative. Is there an alternative to funnel money or resources to the food banks?
I'm not aware of that, how we would do that. I want to be clear on the SNAP benefits on the cards. It's also not clear to me that there is an actual mechanism to get state dollars loaded onto EBT cards. So I don't know that that's actually what I suggest is a viable alternative. I don't think it is.
I want to thank you for what I see as a positive attitude. And I think a lot of people were disturbed that the Fed seemed to say, yes, they could advance it out of some reserve fund, and they said, no, they can't. I hope that we will find a mechanism, announce it, and stick with it to help our people during this very unusual set of facts. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to continue the conversation. Director Rainey, we talk about how we get that. Louisiana declared a state of emergency to allow those funds to go in. Virginia has done it. They've done it also with SNAP loaded to EBT cards, as well as New Hampshire. They have done it also. So it can be done. They're doing it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we have over $1 billion, maybe $2 billion in our surplus. You know, we have a rainy, these are tough times. We have a rainy day fund. It's storming, and we need to take care of Hoosiers here in our state. So it has been done before. It's been done before, I think it's 2009, Director Rainey. $40 million was transferred from the Department of Child Services to Police and Fire Pension. At that time, Governor Daniels did it back in 2012 in regards to address the debt for prisons. So it's passed. We have done it. We just had to have the will to do it, or give the authority to help them as advisory to say, thou can do this if they choose to do that. That's what we want to do. We just try and take care of people that live next door to us and in our communities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Well, I think there's some options from what I'm hearing. It's probably a little, from also what I'm hearing, it's probably a little too complicated for something just to be put on our agenda. But I'll take a vote on the motion. So, Representative Porter?
Aye.
Representative Thompson?
No.
Director Rainey?
No.
And I vote no. So 3-2. So,
Nope.
Oh, Senator Skoski, I'm sorry.
I would vote yes. I vote yes.
I guess I already counted your vote and said 3-2. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to just note 2 Scrivener's errors on the agenda. Just wanted to make a verbal correction so they're reflected in the minutes. The first deals with the reports on the last page of the agenda. Report number 12, the State Educational Institution Annual Report. The agenda notes it's Indiana University Southeast. The report that was submitted is actually for the entire Indiana University as a whole, not just Southeast. So a minor Scrivener's error there. The second then is on the university projects. In the agenda, university project number 4, which impacts Purdue University. The agenda notes that the project is $2,520,000. The actual number should be $2,425,000. $2,425,500. I believe Kendra, who will be presenting that project in front of the committee, will note the correct amount. But again, I'd just like to point those 2 errors out so they can be reflected in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now have the agenda placed on the table for discussion. So first, we'll start with the projects. I've got the Indiana State Police.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here today. I'm Mick McClanahan, Captain with the Indiana State Police, Commander of our Logistics Division. Today I'm here before you requesting approval and funding in the amount of $1.2 million for the removal and full upgrade of our HVA system in the Sellersburg Post. The current system was installed in 1980. It's 45 years old, and it serves a 14,000 square foot building. We've seen over the years it's become increasingly costly to perform any repairs due to the time it takes to get components, and also that it runs on the old refrigerant. So we are very appreciative you consider and support this request.
Questions from the committee? Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind the committee that Sellersburg is in my district, and since it was, the HVAC was in 1980, I was born in 82, and I'm balding now and just had a knee replacement, so I would encourage you to support a replacement of the HVAC. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Adjutant General's Office.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and staff. I'm Brigadier General Larry Munich, the Adjutant General of the Indiana National Guard in the Adjutant General's Office. I want to thank this committee for their role in supporting the National Guard. Tomorrow we will have the grand opening of our new beautiful Hamilton County Readiness Center located in Atlanta, Indiana. This represents the largest step to date in fulfilling our Armory modernization plan that will condense the number of overall buildings and save millions on long-term maintenance costs. Soon, soldiers that had driven long distances to old obsolete places will call the modern Hamilton County Readiness Center home. This project was nearly 2 decades in the making, and it couldn't have been done without your support, so thank you for that. It is the honor of my lifetime to represent more than 10,000 members of the Indiana National Guard and stand here in front of you today. As their representative, it is an obligation for me to relay that we are now in the 29th day of the federal government shutdown. This month has been a month of worry and uncertainty for Guardsmen who receive their pay federally. They are not knowing where their next paycheck will come from. While I always refer to the National Guard as a grand bargain, I never thought that would mean seeing our Guardsmen work without pay. Rest assured that we're doing all we can with the limited relief tools available, but this has been an incredibly challenging month, and once this concludes, I will do a complete assessment and may seek additional authorities or help for our Indiana Guardsmen during times like this in the future. Despite this adversity, your Indiana Guard heroes continue to shine. Despite the shutdown, airmen from Fort Wayne's 122nd Fighter Wing are thriving in a joint exercise involving 10 F-16s, the Australian Air Force, and other partners to demonstrate they are now warfighter ready. The Indiana Army National Guard has blown through October recruiting goals exceeding 115% of mission. And we also said farewell last weekend to the 38th Military Police Company out of Monticello, Indiana, who will soon assume their duty securing the southern border. So rest assured, we are ready and we are employed. I am here today to ask for the release of funding for several fiscal year 26 replacement and rehabilitation projects. I want to highlight that the Indiana National Guard receives significant amounts of federal facility dollars that supplement each of these state investments. Most projects come with a federal 50% match. In my remarks, I will highlight the state share for each project. All of these projects are critical to maintaining the function and usefulness of our armories as we work through our 20-year modernization plan. For our next project, we're requesting $294,378 in funding to design and construct the Muscatatuck Urban Training Center Building 319 roof replacement. The building roof elevations vary in age and are estimated to be between 40 and 79 years old and have reached the end of their useful life. There are multiple leaks, allowing water to penetrate the facility. This project would replace multiple elevations of the building, including 7,122 square feet of flat roof, with a new EPDM roof system, warranted to last more than 30 years. Due to an agreement between Indiana and the federal government, the cost of this particular project is 100% funded by state dollars. Does the committee have any questions regarding this project?
Questions? All right, continue.
Next, I'm requesting $595,204 in funding to design and construct the Danville Armory roof replacement. The Armory roof is over 20 years old and has reached the end of its useful life. It has multiple leaks, allowing water to penetrate the facility. This project also would replace the current 12,230 square foot flat roof with a new EPDM membrane roofing system, again warranted for 30 years. Due to an agreement with the Indiana National Guard and federal government, the cost of this project is shared equally between federal and state. The state share will be $297,602. Any questions on this project? The agency is requesting funding of $562,238 to design and construct the Remington Armory Motor Vehicle Storage Building roof replacement. The 6,000 square foot roof is 74 years old. It is constructed of transite panels containing asbestos that yield a potentially environmental hazard and has experienced multiple leaks. The project will include demolition and disposal of the existing roofing system, replacement of any deterioration decking material, and installation of new standing seam metal roofing system. The agreement between Indiana and the federal government is the cost sharing equally, and the state's share will be $281,119. Any questions? We are requesting the release of $2,498,560 to replace the Evansville Armory HVAC system. This is a 75,244 square foot facility built in 1998 with the original HVAC system still installed, making the HVAC system past the end of its useful life. The project will design and replace the HVAC air handling, boiler, and chiller units with modern, efficient systems and building controls. The agreement between Indiana and federal government, the cost of this project is shared equally between both parties. The state share would be $1,249,280. Any questions? Continuing on, we are requesting $475,524 in funding to design and construct the Fort Wayne Armory boiler replacement. This project will replace the 32-year-old boiler system with a modern, efficient modular boiling system, which will increase energy efficiency and resiliency at the facility. The replacement of this system will prevent catastrophic failure of existing equipment and reduce maintenance costs associated with the existing boiler. The agreement between the Indiana and federal government, the cost of this project is shared equally. The state share will be $237,762. Any questions on this project? We are requesting funding of $440,300 to design and replace the Stoutfield Building No. 3 boiler. This project will replace the 29-year-old boiler system at the end of its useful life with a modern, efficient boiler system, which will increase energy efficiency and resiliency at the facility. The replacement of this system will prevent failure of the boiler and significantly reduce the maintenance costs associated with the existing boiler. The cost of this project is 63% federally funded at $277,390 and 37% state funded, state share at $162,911. Any questions? For our last project, I'm requesting $352,240 in funding to design and construct the Winchester Armory hot boiler replacement. This project will replace the 25-year-old boiler system with a modern, efficient modular boiler system, which will increase energy efficiency and resiliency at the facility. The replacement of this system will significantly reduce the maintenance costs associated with the existing boiler that is at the point of total failure. Due to an agreement between the federal government and Indiana, the cost of this is shared equally. The state share will be $176,120. And those are all our projects. Any questions, sir?
Questions from the committee? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Office of Utility Consumer Counselor. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. Matt Kent with Department of Administration representing the Office of Utility Commission, Consumer Counselor, and the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. We're requesting $1 million to renovate and relocate these two agencies back onto the Indiana Government Center campus. These two agencies currently pay roughly a combined $1 million per year in off-site leases in Indianapolis. As IDOA, with the help of the State Budget Agency, continues to encourage agencies to reduce their physical footprint, we gain opportunities to bring agencies back onto the campus at a significant cost savings. Due to this consolidation effort, IDEM will soon be vacating 22,000 square feet of space on the 10th floor of the Government Center North, allowing these two agencies to move into that space. The requested funds will go towards renovating a space that has not been had an overhaul since the early 1990s. It will include reconfiguring the space to meet the needs of the two agencies, installation of workspaces and limited office spaces, replacement of cabling and network upgrades, and then any necessary lighting upgrades. We hope to start this work in January, and it should take 4 to 5 months to complete.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Department of Natural Resources. Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. I'm Greg Sarles, the Deputy Director and CFO for the Department of Natural Resources. DNR has 2 projects on the agenda today for your consideration. First is the Brown County Equestrian Horsemen's Campground. We're asking for $1.5 million in state dollars, and $1.2 million will come from land water conservation funding. As many of you will remember, in June of this year, we requested $925,000 for phase 1. We've rehabbed the comfort station, repaired water lines, reopened 28 campsites, and we continue to clean up debris from the tornado left behind. Community support in the equestrian community has been absolutely fantastic, and they have helped us get to the point we are today. In phase 2, we'll install a new water line, 10 water hydrants, repave damaged portions of the roadway, and the campground has been redesigned to better accommodate campers and provide additional space. 75 campsites will be rewired. new picnic tables, fire rings, hitching posts, manure bins, and new gravel camping pads will all be installed. We'll also install 200 larger sized trees throughout the campground, reseed, fertilize, mulch the entire campground. And we plan to reopen the campground in the fall of 2026. Questions?
Questions? All right, thank you.
The second project is the Versailles Aquatic Center rehabilitation, $640,591 state dollars. Repairs at the pool at Versailles include repairing the pool floor, preparing and painting just over 6,000 square feet with a specialized epoxy paint, repouring concrete and painting in the baby pool, and then the entire pool facility will be recaulked to prolong the useful life. The project also replaces the roofing and the cedar siding on the pool building itself, and all of the building's steel doors will be replaced due to rust and routine end-of-life maintenance with exposure to chlorine and just the actual dampness.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have ILEA, Timothy Horty.
Good morning, sir. My name is Tim Horty. I proudly serve as the Executive Director at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy in Plainfield. I'm here to respectfully request $8.1 million from the committee to refurbish 40 dormitory rooms at our campus in Plainfield for young police officers from around the state to come stay in while they're doing their training. These officers come from every district in the state and is very much needed to finish our project, sir.
Yeah, I just want to read some numbers here to you. So I have $7 million in 21, $78 million in 22, $11 million in 23, and $5 million in 24. And now you're asking for more, and that's $110 million that we've invested in this ILEA. It's gone way over budget. And then we put in $5 million for the Northern Indiana training facility, and they've come in under budget at $5 million. So at some point, is it not cheaper for us to build more $5 million facilities around the state than to keep pumping all this money into ILEA?
Those are satellite agencies that we have around the state. 2/3 of our state's police officers come to Plainfield to stay. Those satellite facilities are not residential facilities. So we have folks coming from as far north as South Bend, as far south as Evansville, and it's a residential facility. I agree, it is a lot of money. This will allow us to be the envy of training facilities around the country.
Well, envy's great, but $110 million. But my point is, you wouldn't need dormitories if you build them around the state, because if you built smaller ones around the state at $5 million a whack with no dormitories, you get quite a few facilities by the time you get to 110.
That's certainly a way to look at it, sir. We believe that the residential facility that instills better discipline, keeps these folks together with us Monday through Friday, is the model that seems to work for us.
Well, I hope this is the last time that you come in front of us and ask for money for ILEA.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you. White River State Park Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the committee. I'm Terry Seitz, the Executive Director of the White River State Park Development Commission. On behalf of the commission, I'm here this morning to request $1,073,921 for the continued upgrades or replacement of older building processes that we have in a building occupied by the National Federation of High Schools. It's one of two buildings that predate the state's ownership of White River State Park in 1979. The building itself is about 100 years old, and the windows, while not historic in nature, predate the park establishment in 1979, and they are failing as indicated by the content in front of you. We do appreciate consideration of the windows. There will be 56, and I've been assured that not a single one of them can be ordered from a factory. They will be made. There's nothing stock about them. All the openings are kind of old-fashioned in nature, but that's the total amount that will be done for this project.
Questions from the committee? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Department of Transportation, Aaron Wainscott.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron Wainscott. I'm the Legislative Director for INDOT. INDOT is requesting $825,000 from the State Highway Fund for 81 new office workstations on the 6th and 7th floor of Government Center North. This request directly supports Governor Braun's return to work executive order, which requires state employees to return to full-time in-office work by July 1st, 2025. To meet that directive, INDOT must provide additional workspace for employees currently operating remotely or in temporary arrangements. The installation will be completed without moving existing walls or cubes, and the cost covers modular furniture, electrical and IT setup, and chairs. Importantly, this project will fully utilize all remaining INDOT assigned space in Government Center North, ensuring the agency can meet workforce needs under the new policy without expanding its footprint. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, just a quick question. That's $10,000 a workstation. I mean, what are these workstations going to have?
Right. So if you look at it mathematically, it looks like it breaks down to $10,000 a station. Because of the rewiring we have to do across that whole floor, part of that cost goes into that as well, rather than just the workstation itself. So while I understand it looks like that, that's not actually the breakdown.
That's almost Senator Garton's mile per trail. Any other questions? Representative Porter.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Yeah, that is pretty expensive. But yet still, we also sent a letter at least 2 months ago about EVs, and your director has not still gotten back with us in regards to a question. They acknowledged the letter, but still has not answered the question about EV and what's going on with EVs here in the state of Indiana, particularly those in the urban areas. So just want to put on notice publicly, because they refused to respond to me, that I'm still expecting a letter from her or you, whomever, in regards to EV stations in urban areas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I apologize. I was under the impression that letter had been sent, so
that
I'm
letter has
happy to
not
follow
been sent.
up.
It was 150 words acknowledging that I asked the question with nothing being said. Counted the words. Standard letter to a constituent, came to my home. Thank you.
You'll address that issue?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
State Fair Commission, Ray Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ray Allison. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Indiana State Fair Commission. I'm here to respectfully request $558,000 to replace the roof ventilator on the West Pavilion, or as many of you may know, at the Cattle Barn. The current ventilator on the West Pavilion is 70 years old and no longer provides sufficient ventilation for the 170,000 square foot space. The existing system has been maintained and serviced to extend its life. However, repairs have become expensive and parts obsolete. The system is basically failing on every level possible at this point. The new ventilator includes the removal of the existing unit, installation of 15 new direct drive exhaust fans, and the installation of 700 linear feet of rubber membrane roofing. This is a change of use request for FY24 R&R funds.
Any questions? Just a comment, I know you're not Cindy, but I see she's retiring, so
Yes,
I guess
sir.
I want to publicly thank Cindy Hoy for all her years of service to the Fair Commission. I mean, she's been doing it longer, I think, than I've been in office, so.
She's been with the organization for 38 years, been our executive director for going on 21. Big shoes to fill, and thank you for that acknowledgement, Senator
Thank you.
Mishler.
All right, now we're to university projects. Indiana University.
Good morning, Chairman Mishler, members of the State Budget Committee, Zach Smith-Howard, Director of State Relations for Indiana University. With the departure of Vice President Tom Morrison to Duke University, IU State Relations will now shepherd IU's projects through the state approval process with the Commission and the Budget Committee, which is a change of practice for IU. John D'Angelo, our new VP of Capital Facilities and Planning, and his team will continue to serve as our subject matter experts on the specifics of all capital projects and be available as needed to answer any questions our team can't provide. So with that out of the way, pursuant to Indiana Code 21333-7, IU requests your authorization to lease the building located at 1619 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest in Washington, D.C., boosting the university's presence, expanding opportunities for our students and our faculty, and that will put them at the center of national and international fairs. Located in Washington's DuPont Circle neighborhood, the building was constructed in 1961 and is 8 stories. It includes almost 60,000 gross feet above grade and has an 11,000 square foot underground parking garage with 5 surface parking spots contiguous to the building. The building was purchased by the IU Foundation for the use by Indiana University on March 14th, 2025. The building is currently undergoing renovations in anticipation of initial occupancy in January of 2026. The base rent charges for the building will be paid semi-annually in the amount of $1,350,000 due each January and July, commencing on January 1st. We request your approval to enter into a lease for a term of 20 years. The Board of Trustees approved the lease agreement at their business meeting held on June 12th, and for the first year of operations, it's projected that 70% of the lease will be covered by IU's general operating funds, and 30% will be covered by IU auxiliary funds. As academic programming and facility operations adjust in the future, that split may shift, but it will be funded from those 2 sources. The facility will consolidate IU's business and academic operations in the nation's capital into 1 location, taking 5 current leases across the district down to 1. It will allow for expanded engagement opportunities with classrooms, offices, housing, and event space. Happy to take any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Next, do we have Purdue? Boy, Kendra, you're gonna be up there for a while. You guys take the award today for the most projects.
Bear with me. Thank you, everyone. Well, actually, I think maybe DNR also had a similar number of projects because my GovRep counterparts were saying that we were tied, I think, for the number of projects, but maybe I got that wrong. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kendra Leatherman, Director of Government Relations at Purdue University. Today we're bringing to the committee 8 projects for your review, most of which are concentrated in the area of our annual repair and rehab planning efforts and included in the university's FY26 operations budget. The first project for your review today is the Stanley Coulter Hall Southwest Wing Mechanical Project. University plans to request to finance, construct, and award contracts for the new mechanical equipment in the hall. The project will include a new air handling unit, ductwork, controls, piping, supporting electrical work. Current equipment is 65 years old, and we anticipate we will have not only annual savings, but a 50% efficiency gain for the portion of the building that is encompassed by this project. We expect it to cost $8.1 million, and we're going to use a portion of our R&R appropriation for it. Our next project for review is the #1 student life priority, replacing the ceiling tiles in the Elliott Hall of Music. The project will remove and replace the 85-year-old tiles and adhesive in the facility. The new tiles will have similar or better acoustic qualities than the current ones and optimize and support the events in the large open space. The cost of the project is just over $2.5 million and will be funded by auxiliary funds. This next project is the one that Director Rainey mentioned earlier that has a little bit of a Scrivener's error. We're requesting to proceed with the planning, financing, and construction of contracts for a chiller cleaning system on the West Lafayette campus. The project will install new equipment that cleans the internal parts of the chillers at the Wade Utility Northwest Chiller Plant. Today, the equipment is cleaned once per year, which requires the system to shut down while the work is being completed, and the new equipment will allow the chillers to be cleaned automatically while they're in operation. This will provide both energy and labor savings, and we estimate will pay for itself over the next 7 years. The total cost of the project is $2,425,500, and we're using operating funds. We're also for our next project, we're requesting to use R&R funds to repair the masonry on the Hicks Undergraduate Library on West Lafayette campus. Repairs will include mortar and sealant replacement along with the installation of metal coverings over the 4 slope masonry walls. Not only does the library have active learning space, but this specific library houses special collections that need to be protected from the elements. The project will restore the exterior building envelope to prevent future water infiltration and interior damage, and we have set aside $2.1 million of R&R funds for this project. The next project on the agenda is a replacement of the roof on Young Hall. We're requesting to use $3.1 million of our R&R appropriation to replace 16,000 square feet of the roof. The replacement sections are between 15 to 20 years old, and this project is expected to need additional worker safety precautions as the building is 10 stories high. The building currently houses a substantial portion of our central university support services. The next item we're asking to review is the purchase of 518 to 520 Indiana Avenue. This property is vital to part of our efforts to bring the full force of Purdue to Indianapolis, as it's right across West Street from the Academic Success Center, which was authorized by the General Assembly and is currently under construction. The property is a 2-story, 25,000 square foot building on 3/4 of an acre in downtown Indianapolis. Acquiring this building will allow the university to expand its current footprint for Purdue students in Indianapolis, reassign on-campus space to academic and research needs, relocate a variety of student services to a single location, and provide additional study and collaboration spaces. The total purchase cost is $4.5 million and will be fully funded by reserve operating funds.
Representative Porter?
Thank you very much. Who currently owns that property?
Purdue Research Foundation owns it at the present moment. We are purchasing it from the foundation. Last, I believe, January, we purchased it from, Purdue Research Foundation purchased it from Go West LLC. It's the former Schultz and Polk building.
Okay, okay. I know where it is. Okay, thank you. Just want to know who owned that property currently that we paying $4.5 million to, which is kind of within the family, right? Basically,
Yes.
you're buying from each other.
As you can imagine, when you're trying to be strategic about buying properties in downtown Indianapolis, and there are so many of them, there are certain time constraints that these need to be done in. So that's why that transaction happened in that way.
Okay, thank you very much.
My question would be, are you buying it for the same amount that they bought it for?
We are, yes.
All right, just checking.
Yes, that is actually a question that everyone asks from the board to the commission to hear, so I was ready for that one. Okay, our next project we're requesting approval to proceed with is the installation of a new condensate polisher at the utility plant. The new polisher will reduce impurities in the steam condensate, which will decrease the amount of buildup and corrosion that happens over time. The installation will reduce frequency of ongoing costly repairs and extend the life of the campus turbine generators, boilers, and auxiliary equipment. Overall, we anticipate the annual savings on operating expenditures and cost avoidance will pay for itself in just 6 years. We've set aside $3.4 million in operating funds for this project. Oh. Okay, and then my last one. As authorized by the 26-27 budget, the university has identified 8 priority maintenance projects specifically targeted for our regional campuses. The total project cost is just over $4.5 million, using the full regional deferred maintenance appropriation of just over $4 million, and the remaining $500,000 funded by traditional R&R dollars. At Purdue Northwest, we plan to initiate the second phase of the class office building renovation and replace a powerhouse chiller at the Westville location. And at Purdue Fort Wayne, we'll initiate 6 projects, including roof replacements, renovating common spaces around campus, updating lighting, waterproofing interior and exterior walls.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the university projects. Now we will go to review items. First up, we have the Indiana Gaming Commission. Mark Mason.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is actually Bob Opat. I'll be testifying for us today for the Indiana Gaming Commission. I'm the License Control Counsel. As a result of Senate Enrolled Act 108 and Senate Enrolled Act 209 being signed into law during the last legislative session, the Indiana Gaming Commission has begun the process of promulgating administrative rules relating to the conduct of electronic pull-tab games and the use of electronic raffle systems. Both of these are new technologies that will allow qualified organizations to fundraise in new and exciting ways. A version of the proposed rule has been posted to the Commission's website for review and informal comment from industry stakeholders since June 11, 2025. With the help of these stakeholders, the Commission has created an efficient, effective, and transparent regulatory regime for these new technologies that will ensure that charitable gaming continues to be conducted with integrity in Indiana. Pursuant to Indiana Code 4-22-2-37.2, an agency must obtain the governor's approval before it is able to begin the interim rulemaking process. If a proposed rule is anticipated to create costs of at least $1 million for regulated entities over any 2-year period, the State Budget Committee must review it before the governor can provide their approval. Industry stakeholders have indicated that the proposed rule is likely to lead to costs at this level, most significantly stemming from the requirement for gaming laboratory certification for electronic pull-tab games. This requirement, as well as others contained in the proposed rule, are necessary to ensure that charitable gaming in Indiana is conducted with integrity and confidence while these new technologies are introduced. Additionally, the costs associated with the proposed rule are commensurate with costs in other states that allow these technologies, and these costs will not be so significant that they disincentivize the use of these new technologies. Ultimately, the benefits of the proposed rule will outweigh the costs. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the proposed.
Questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have the Horse Racing Commission, David Rothenberg.
Oh, here we go. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We come to you today because House Enrolled Act 1623 requires any fines, fees, or penalties to be cleared before the Budget Committee. What we are asking for is the allowance to go ahead and promulgate a rule which will allow a late fee to be incurred for full registration during the foal's weanling year and qualified as an Indiana-bred horse, thus being able to qualify it for awards later on. Right now, the deadline is December 31st of the foal's weanling year. We would like to extend that past December 31st with a late registration fee. So this came to us from the actual horsemen. They're the ones that suggested it, and they're the ones that came up actually with the amount of the fee. Of course, the fee is $500 right now. You can see there is a $200 fee if you register before December 31st. So our hope is that the other fee, which is a little bit higher, pushes them to register before December 31st. That's preferable. We're probably looking at a total of anywhere from 10 to 20 horses a year. So it's not a large amount. We're not actually increasing fees, but what we're doing is we're allowing an opportunity for people who, for one reason or another, are late in registering their horses. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a sort of a general comment for Budget Committee members. So this fiscal threshold language, we refer to it as the State Reigns Act, and that was language that we put in House Bill 1623 on the Senate side, and that was a bill that I sponsored. I think Representative Bartels carried it on the House side. But the idea and the impetus behind what we're seeing here today in practicality is if any one of us here, Democrat or Republican, file a bill that has more of a $100,000 impact, it gets recommitted. But what was happening in state agencies is they could impose fees, fines, or civil penalties, or fiscal impact even, and that's really what this is more about, really with no cap, with no second look. And so what this really was, in theory, is a sort of a fiscal recommit for state agencies, making sure that state legislators have eyes on the impact to our taxpayers and our constituents at the agency level for what they're imposing. So I just wanted to put that out there for folks in the crowd and folks that might be listening online, and just sort of as a legislative reminder of the action we took here. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Department of Natural Resources, Stephanie Flitner.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Flitner, the General Counsel of Department of Natural Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to present our proposed permanent rules that implement the General Assembly's directives in IC 1439 for carbon sequestration projects. The proposal adds clarity on 2 optional tools for storage operators. These are petitions for involuntary integration and the process for a certificate of project completion. They do not create new fines, fees, or penalties, but they could exceed the threshold in IC 422-2-22.7 over time, which is why we are here today. Does anyone have any questions about the proposed permanent rules?
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Department of Health, Dr. Weaver.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm going to start off this morning by talking to you about requesting support for a proposed rule covering fines imposed by the Department of Health on hospitals, comprehensive care facilities, residential care facilities when conditions causing harm or risk of harm to patients have arisen. This rule is setting the factors to be considered when issuing a fine against any of the facilities in compliance with IC 422-19.6. The maximum fine is already set in state statute at $10,000, so this rule amendment is just to set forward the factors used to determine what the penalty is up to the maximum amount. So the considerations are the potential harm or imminent threat to patient health, the extent of deviation from statutory or regulatory requirements, the degree of willfulness, recklessness, or negligence, and the history of noncompliance and fraudulent conduct. This framework is consistent with the factors that are currently outlined in Statute 16-28-5 and is consistent with current CMS standards of review for fines and penalties, as well as other rules administered by the Department of Health.
Questions? Senator Garton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that. I'm just trying to run some quick math, so bear with me. So it looks like I guess the projection on what would be collected is about $75,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So if you back into that, is that how many violations you think have currently happened maybe in this past year or so? And can you just kind of speak to that a little bit? Why has there not been any fines levied up until this point now? Sort of what's changed?
I think that is why we have the rule, because it felt that we couldn't go forward with the fines without having it defined the reason by which we were picking the number. But yes, looking back over the last several years, on average, would think that would be how much we would collect based on the level.
And is that a change? Is there an increase in that space in terms of patients?
No,
you just haven't been able to hold them accountable when it happens.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Understood.
Yeah, we
Okay.
needed to define it in the rule.
Understood.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. You're doing Department of
You want me
Health.
to keep going? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got the next one is, well, you've got the next 2, so.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to be talking to you for approval for federal grants with the technology to support services for victims of crime and for additional services for victims of crime. These are from the Department of Justice. The first one is $500,000 would be over the course of 36 months. We would not hire any new staff. There is no match, no direct services provided. This would increase availability for victim-centered services, ensure victims are appropriately identified and then referred for services such as obtaining GEDs and life skills. I'm just going to go ahead and talk through all of them, and then I can take questions. The second one, also from the DOG, is for $600,000. Also, would over the course of 36 months, we would move a contractor over to help support this program over to this funding. There's no match, no direct services. This is developing technology to have an integrated system for our Handle with Care program. We have 34 counties participating, over 800,000 referrals every month. Handle with Care is a program that when a law enforcement Other first responders identify that a child has been exposed to a potentially upsetting situation, they're able to anonymously notify the school. So they'll just let the school know that Johnny Smith, please handle him with care, and then the school knows to take proper steps if the child, for example, doesn't show up with their homework or has behavior problems the next day. We are aware that there is more agencies, law enforcement agencies and communities that would like to bring this on, and the technology would make this a seamless system across the state. The third is also from the Department of Justice for $830,000 over 36 months. We would hire one contractor to manage this program. There is no match, there is no direct services. The funding would be used to this program to help support family centers and communities, specifically Delaware, Grant, Madison, Tipton, and Wayne County. This again is to help children and families of violence with parent support groups, resiliency programming for youth, etc. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right, continue.
Moving on. Okay. I was asked to come and give a update on the local public health funding as required. I do have a slide deck I think that you guys have with you as well, and I will try to keep up with flipping through on here. Perfect. So reminder of the why behind the request from the increase in public health funding, acknowledgement that our life expectancy in Indiana, unfortunately, has been going down over the last decade. This is mostly seen in our working class individuals age 25 to 64. There is as much as almost a 10-year difference based on where you live in Indiana, where your life expectancy is at. We also know that for every dollar spent on public health interventions, there is on average a $14 return on benefit, that 25% of U.S. medical care spending is on treatment for diseases that could have been prevented. As a reminder, the local public health funding for 2024 was $75 million. In 2025, it's $150 million. That has been reduced for 26 and 27 to $40 million. We've seen significant wins in the public health space in 2024, announcing our lowest infant mortality rate in history since we started collecting data in 1900. We do believe this is from the very localized work that is happening in our local health departments, partnering with partners. A few examples: Adams County has developed a relationship with the Amish midwives within that community, and has been able to provide them education on prenatal care and pregnancy, an oximeter and blood pressure cuffs to help check for preeclampsia. In partnership with the Montgomery County Public Health Department, they have developed a mobile integrated health that is working closely with expectant moms to make sure that they have all the essential needs to care for their baby, and also have created a coalition with other community health partners. Clark County is working with its local federally qualified health center to help provide longer clinic hours as well as an ultrasound machine to be able to serve that community. We went from having 35 counties that had an evidence-based or promising program, specifically looking to improve birth outcomes, to 87 of our counties and growing, to working on programs that are specific to the needs of their community. We're also excited to see that in 2024, our e-cigarette use in our high schoolers has gone down to 5 from almost a peak of 20% of students saying that they're using vape products. Again, our local health departments, working with partners in their communities, worked hard in 2024 to help bring down that number. Example, Union County is working with within their high school to provide classes, including cannabis education, recognizing in communication that there's a growing use of THC vape products in that community. Also, Monroe County is offering vaping education and providing voluntary tobacco cessation classes for their high school students. And again, these are just a couple of the examples. We now have all 95 of our health departments and communities that are focusing on improving student health, and we're hearing over and over again from schools that they need support specifically when it comes to tobacco use with vaping products, and now, as I mentioned, expanded to THC products as well. We also saw another 25% decrease, or 27% decrease in drug overdoses. Our local health departments are working in this space, partnering with school corporations and other community outreach programs, as they are in Noble County. Madison County is utilizing 4 peer recovery coaches that are working with the jails and local treatment center. They now have over 50 people engaged in that program. Reconnecting with those individuals upon release from jail or prison, and also have a peer recovery coach that is engaged with their Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. We've moved to 84 of our counties that are focusing on an area of trauma-related and injury death within their community. In the space of lead, again, as I have told this group before, lead increases your risk of behavioral problems as well as decreasing IQ within communities. Very important. We're screening our children for lead exposure. St. Joseph County has used their funding to provide lead testing within daycare providers to help minimize that barrier of parents trying to access lead testing. And to date in 2025, 1,900 children have been screened at provider visits compared to only 1,100 at the same time in the year before. Also, this is one of the programs where we see many of our counties actually working together to share resources to address lead testing and case management. So sharing equipment and lead inspection supplies, a blood lead analyzer, and that really reduces our costs and increase efficiency across neighboring health departments. And 91 of our counties now have access to a trained or licensed case manager and risk assessor to conduct case management for children with elevated blood levels. This will have generational effects on those children that are identified. Unfortunately, obesity continues to rise in Indiana, with 37.8% of our adults are having obesity, and the individuals also is growing in the overweight category. Our counties are addressing and will continue to through our engagement with Make Indiana Healthy Again in addressing chronic disease. So Hamilton County is working with their Hamilton County Parks and Recreation to address increasing physical activity. Porter County is working on a program to reduce undiagnosed diabetes, so screening and then connecting people to treatment. Wabash County is working with its local YMCA and Purdue Extension to provide diabetes prevention education and have a 6-month program focusing on lifestyle changes that include weight management, exercise, and nutrition education. We went from only 14 counties across the state back in 2023 before this funding thinking and talking about chronic disease prevention. We now have 85 counties doing so as of June of this year. This is Make Indiana Healthy Again on the ground floor. At the Department of Health, we continue to make sure that we are using data to drive our decision making. We have seen over and over again, statewide initiatives are not what solves these public health issues, and it is these locally driven initiatives that meet people in their community where they are at. And so we continue to strive to make sure that this level of data is available. You can go to our Public Health Data Navigator and look at your individual community to see what the highest needs are. To get into the budget aspect of it, our 2024 projected spend, as you guys have already previously seen, the 2024 actual spend came out at $46 million, and again, it was $75 million that was shared among the counties. This is 62% of the counties. We did ask our local health departments why their budget was, of course, for the full amount, but came in at 60%. 60% of our counties said it took longer to identify and establish funding relationships and make sure that their partners were properly funded. 21% of the funding went to partners. We asked the local health departments to be intentional. Their goal was not to run the money out the door, to make sure that it was going to partners and programs that would actually make a difference. 15% said it took longer for the budget to be approved, and 31% said they were leveraging carryover funds from other programs to start their Health First Indiana funding projects. 1.4 million services were provided. We know it's actually quite a bit more than this, but this is of what we have collected. 1.4 million services were provided through this funding in 2024, including addressing infant and maternal mortality, school health, and emergency preparedness, chronic disease prevention, et cetera, and access and linkage to care. Our 2025 projected spend, as you can see here, 82% of the funds is to go to preventative services. This is in alignment with what it was set out in statute. We also monitored carefully to make sure that they met the requirements of capital spend as well. And 33% of funding, as you will see on a future slide, is was set to go to partners. But we know that many of our health departments have since pivoted since the change in the appropriation for 26 and 27. So far, January through August, almost 1 million services have been provided, a higher number specifically in the maternal and child health and student health area. Looking at the 2026 projected spend, 78% of funding will go to preventative services. And again, they met the capital requirements. Looking specifically at partners in 2024, 21% of funding, as I mentioned before, went to partners, and you can see what type of partners there, including community-based organizations and faith-based organizations received funding to help provide services within their community. In 2025, it was projected that 33% of funding would go to community-based organizations at $24 million, faith-based at $732,000, hardship funds for $750,000, et cetera. And then in 2026, the projected amount has gone down. I'm sorry, it was $9 million in 24. It was $49 million proposed for 25, and that will be 4.8 budgeted for 2026 to go to partners. We continue to keep our website updated. Our goal is to be profoundly transparent with this information. This is just a snapshot looking specifically at Adams County. In 2024, they received $400K. In 2025, $781. That'll go down to $208 in 26. And the links to their budgets are on this website as well. So anybody in the community can see exactly what the plans are, including the new financial report from 2024 is on there as well to see how the money is being spent. The local health departments are updating their county-level key performance indicators, their number of partners, and the activities that they're providing. Again, this is available for everyone to hold accountable, their local health departments within their community. And this is just an example of how we will be showing improvements on their key performance indicators and outcomes. So for example, Adams County goal was to reduce their infant mortality rate, and you can see that they have exceeded their key performance outcome plan to drop to 6.9 in the last measurement. And then as we get new data and all these different data sources come in at different times, we'll update our county health scorecard. A lot of this data is being utilized to help support our work with the Rural Health Transformation Program application. The fact that we have this level of county level data will definitely be looked at as well favored for our rural communities to be able to take action immediately. And then I will end there.
I have a couple of questions. So on page 26 of the budgeted for 26.
Yep.
The hospitals seem to be the largest individual receiver of the funds. And explain why a hospital would be receiving the county health money.
Yeah, so that was the local health department specifically identifying if there was a need. So of course it's going to vary with all of those, but for example, for the infant mortality and child fatality space, if they would partner with the hospital to help to get out car seats, for example, or to have car seat technicians, or how are we getting more prenatal vitamins out into a community? So it depends, but often they were looking as the hospital as the kind of the main stakeholder within that community to be able to touch the broader community. Fall prevention is another one, working with hospitals to do fall prevention for our elderly, chronic disease. So, making sure if you're going to test for diabetes, where is that lab test going? How are we going to follow up with them? So I could talk and talk and talk, but yeah, there's lots of different ways.
Okay, and in the budget process, there was concerns because there was misuse of the funds by some of the counties. It was mentioned that they just had too much money, so they're finding things to spend it on, like rulers and little gimmicks and things like that. So I guess my question is, do you audit the counties to make sure that they're using the money for what it's supposed to be used for?
We are limited in our ability. So again, as a reminder, this does have to be approved by their county council. So it is going through an approval process at the local level. From the State Department level, our levels of engagement, other than by influence, are to make sure that they're staying within their capital investment and that they're not spending more than 40% on regulatory, which all of them have met. Other than that, we do work really carefully and closely with the local health departments, providing technical assistance to make sure this funding is going exactly where all of you want to. But at the end of the day, it is the local county council working with the health department to determine the budget and the plan for the local community.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Dr. Weaver, just sort of piggybacking off some of the things Senator Mishler said, I've got concerns. I didn't realize that this amount of money was from the local health department was going to hospitals. And I get that there's a need for the things that you mentioned, but there's also, which you're more familiar with than me, something called community benefit that these hospitals claim that they're providing and doing, although it's undefined. And so, you know, again, I have a hard time. I'll use IU as an example. Members have heard me say this. IU made more money on Wall Street than they made providing health care for Hoosiers. But we're going to continue to funnel money to them through local health department funding so they can do something that's really community benefit that they claim they're providing already. I just have a real problem with that. And so I just want to be on the record for that. So thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Cadora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Weaver, for your presentation. I appreciate you and your team for using research and data to inform your health or your public health strategies. I have a couple of questions on the first few slides. The first one on page 3, the life expectancy. What is the main contributor to that gap, that 9-year gap between the different counties? Do we know exactly what are the issues and how we can solve those?
Yeah, the two counties are Scott County and Hamilton County. Scott County, as you are aware, has had history. And we know in general that decline in that working group is primarily driven by substance use disorder and suicide.
I used to work for FSSA when the first Scott County issue came about a few years ago, maybe more than a decade ago. And I know that the needle program, I think, is set to expire soon. And I think it requires a General Assembly reauthorization. Is that your understanding?
For the statewide permission for locals to make that decision, that is correct.
So that probably something we need to work on this upcoming session, probably. So I appreciate that answer. On the next page, the investments, I appreciate you for sharing that for every dollar spent on public health intervention, it returns $14.30. My comment to my committee, this is higher than the IEDC return on investment on their project, so maybe this is something good to invest in. On the page number 5, the infant mortality rate, congratulations on helping drop that rate and then providing a couple of examples. My question is, do you think that the current interventions will continue help that down pointing trend, that declining trend to continue? Or is this, are we just going back to maybe 6.3 is what is the norm or the baseline that we will continue to see? And those interventions were needed, and this where we're gonna, what does data show you? Are you able to forecast that trend?
We need that number to continue to go down. As you can see, we're still, quite a bit over where the U.S. is at and above the goal where we would like to see us. I hope that number continues to go down. I do believe that is that local intervention, those communities who know, where the women are, who the women are that need to be supported. What does that look like? Is it substance use? Is it access to prenatal care? Whatever that need is specifically for that woman and in that community. But we'll have to see as the data comes in. We are to the point where we'll be releasing the quarterly data, but it's going to be on a rolling basis. It can't be utilized to give too much indication, especially in our very rural communities that have very low numbers, but it'll give us an indication and closer to real time how we're doing as a state.
I appreciate that. My final question, and then I have a request after that question. As it relates to the services, tagging along Senator Garton's question, is there a way that you can distinguish whether or not your interventions are targeting the population that overlaps with Medicaid? For example, if you're providing car seats for infants at a hospital and they are Medicaid patients, is there a way that you can distinguish between funding going through the local Department of Health versus what is funded through the Medicaid contracts with the managed care entities? Now, I know that DOH is different than FSSA, but when I used to work for FSSA on the quality strategy plan, there was a payment for outcomes program that would incentivize the MCEs to get more funding if they improve, smoking cessation rates or chronic illnesses or diabetes management or in these. So is there an overlap in those services for the Medicaid population versus the general public?
So really the goal of this funding and why we have asked those communities to come together to look to identify where the gaps are. And that is what this funding is meant to use, is to fill in the gaps, not to duplicate services. Not to say that I fully suspect that women who are on Medicaid are getting services both through both sides of the program. It would be very hard to distinguish which intervention is working. When it comes to these public health initiatives, it is additive, right? We know that one single thing is not going to have healthy mom and healthy baby. It is the multiple services that are being provided and the touch points throughout the pregnancy and after the pregnancy that get us there.
And I'm very supportive of these investments. According to the research that you cited, 25% of all illnesses can be prevented. And the analogy that I use is similar to building a home. You invest significantly in the infrastructure, the underground foundational infrastructure that not too many people see, but without the foundation, you can't build a home or a structure. And it seems that sometimes when you spend these dollars, and it takes years to improve public health, but I appreciate your work on this. The last thing that I have is a request. I have several families in my district who have children with different disabilities. Indiana code had something that relates or describes the birth problem registry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Now, the Department of Health on their website, they call the registry the Indiana Birth Defects and Problem Registry. It's traumatizing to some of these families to think about their kids as defects. So I tried to change that legislatively. My bill did not move forward. My constituents suggested looking at other states for renaming this because this does not take legislative change. This is an IDOH thing. I think the system can be changed. So for example, in Kentucky, they call it the Birth Surveillance Registry. In Illinois, they call it the Adverse Pregnancy Outcomes and Reporting System. In Montana, it is called the Montana Birth Outcome Monitoring System. In Wisconsin, it's called the Birth and Developmental Outcome Monitoring Program. And many in my district suggested that we use the Baby Watch Indiana Birth Surveillance Program, mimicking what Kentucky does. So, and I can specifically remember one of the families who she has now, I think her daughter's 14 or 15 years old. She's visually impaired, and she went through that experience. So I sincerely appeal to you, please consider within your agency if you can change the name of this registry because it does not require legislative change. And I would love to celebrate with you and take that news back to my constituents with these children to tell them that it's traumatizing and it's harsh terminology, that their babies are defects. So I urge you to consider with your leadership team changing that name. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Weaver, for being here. Good to see that the infant mortality rates has had a historical low. However, within the African-American community, it's double. Do we have any long-term or short-term initiatives that will help address that issue with regards to African-Americans and infant mortality?
Yeah, so it has not doubled, but you're right, the infant mortality rate of Black infants in Indiana is twice the rate of our state rate, correct?
Right.
I think that, again.
Of the state rate, I'm sorry.
Of the state rate, that's right,
Yes,
yes,
yes, ma'am.
twice the rate of the state rate.
Yes.
I think that is the brilliance of this legislation and the local public health funding that many of you passed in 2023, is it allows local communities to meet their community where they're at and to utilize the data to make sure that the women and families that are affected in that community are served in that way. So we are seeing every single county utilize this funding and again, look at their data. So if they see differences like the ones that you're stating, that they can direct their funding to identify, but the why, what are the services that are needing, what is the education, what is the connection to care, and then they're utilizing the funding to address those differences.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weaver. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Anyone else? Representative Delaney?
Doctor, thank you very much for your testimony. Why is Indiana so far behind the nation in mortality and obesity? What's the problem here?
I do believe that it comes down to getting before the problem. We will not see this tide change if we continue to just take care of people in the acute care setting. We have invested on sickness and instead of health. And if we want to see that change, then we're going to have to get ahead of it. We're going to have to focus on prevention, and that's going to take some time. So it's going to take some patience. I think this is the Make Indiana Healthy again. That's exactly what the governor's executive orders are asking us to do, is to focus on the prevention, the behavior, the education, the connection to good food that will start to make those changes.
I want to make a suggestion, see if I'm off base. I was disturbed by Senator Garton's remarks. Apparently, if a local agency decides that the best way to provide a service is through a hospital, that's somehow problematic. Is it fair to say that the public health institutions try to take care of the overall health of the community, whereas hospitals take care of individual patients? That seems to me that's the difference. And so if the local health agency thinks that the hospital is the best one to get vitamins to mothers or children, newborns, well, so be it. In my view, if that's the best, most efficient, cheapest, or most convenient way, let's just do it. And that ties into your comment, I think was critical. When we cut the budget from 150 million to 40, are we choking off the local initiatives that you talked about? Is this going to have an impact on those initiatives?
Yes, it already has had an impact where people are starting to pull back on the programs and the initiatives that they have started to see as successful in their communities. We're working really closely with the local health departments. I mean, those that they've seen to make sure they're continuing to use the funding for those that they've seen the biggest impact on. But yes, of course, it will change what their plans were.
And have we eroded the confidence of local institutions, faith-based institutions, civic groups, community groups when we've cut the revenue? I see many of those groups have lost 2/3 or more of the money. Are we undercutting the willingness of these outside agencies to cooperate with our public health system?
I think that, again, is one of the things that I really appreciated about this legislation is that you guys charge the local health departments to collaborate with their community. So rather than everybody continuing to work in a silo, it's how can we actually come together, leverage this funding as a thing that brings us together so that we can really serve as a catalyst for improvement. Again, all these 1,000 cuts by everyone working on different things was not getting us to where we needed. And this was the first time many of our counties have brought all of these different individual organizations together at the same table to have these conversations. They immediately identified where they were duplicating services, which is a lot of it's our taxpayer dollars, that they shouldn't do so anymore. And then, okay, well, where are the gaps and how do we pivot to make sure that we're providing as many services as possible with the resources that we have?
I'm hoping for one that we restore those resources. On a totally different issue, I'm hearing that, according to this memo, that THC is now appearing in vape.
That's right.
And I've been told by some people in the beverage industry that THC is being put in beverages and sold in convenience stores. I have no comprehension of these things. What is do we know, do we check what percentage of this THC is in the beverage that's supposedly held to a certain percent, or is this just a Wild West that we have here?
I am not able to fully answer that question to you. That is not something that we are involved in from the Department of Health standpoint.
So you don't check to see whether the vape and or the beverage is beyond the alleged percentage?
We are hearing from our schools in a growing number that they're identifying THC products in the vapes that our youth are using.
If you have that data, I hope you'll send it to us and to the state police and anybody else, because I think this is a very dangerous trend. Thank you for the information on that. Yep. Lastly, is the cut from 150 million to 40 million in support for local health initiatives. Is that going to affect our efforts on vaccination?
I have not seen where that will affect our ability for our local health departments to provide that access.
That's sort of a traditional service that they've had,
That
isn't
the
it?
local health departments did, yeah. Really, this funding was meant to expand, to look into, I mean, to your point, there was nobody in these counties, in these communities who were zooming out to saying, what are we doing to prevent chronic disease? What are we doing to improve infant mortality? We are relying on on hospitals, right? And not really that zoom out to do that prevention for the entire community. So that was where this funding has primarily gone, was to that expansion.
Right. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Just first, I want to respond to Representative Delaney's comments. So, Representative, I don't have an issue with a local health department choosing to work with a hospital on what they believe is a priority for their community. That's not my issue. My issue is right now we have hospitals that are defining community benefit as a $20,000 sign next to a scoreboard at a high school. I think they would be better served in the community benefit aspect by providing some of the services that these monies are flowing through to pay for. And that's the only thing I'm suggesting. So I want to be clear on that. I also want to respond to what keeps being referred to as a cut in public health funding. It's important to understand that the General Assembly lowered that by the difference of what they were able to spend. That's it, nothing more. We literally lowered it to the amount that our public health departments spent after the first allocation. So when we had a year where we had a $2.4 billion, billion with a B, deficit, why would we appropriate funds to anybody that they couldn't spend? It just didn't make sense. And so I just think it's important for everybody listening, watching, and on the committee to understand why that fiscal decision was made. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking back 50, 60 years ago, here was the message, and done well. Mom and Dad smoke. They're wonderful people, but we were educated that that is not the best for your long-term health. And so jump ahead, 50, 60 years. And how you do this with schools, I'm not sure, but Mom and Dad are wonderful people. They're great people, but they're making unwise decisions health-wise, and how we communicate that. Because education, you mentioned that, is powerful. And once you understand some key things to do for your own personal health, both today and long-term, you've got to find a way to do that, because my contention is a lot of people don't understand the connection with your decisions on exercise and diet and what you do and what that's going to affect your life to come. And so think through that and how we work with schools to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick, Representative Delaney had talked about vaccines. Dr. Weaver, so are those dollars still available from the federal government? Has those dollars been cut recently in regards to vaccines?
For the Vaccine for Children's
Yes,
program? No,
yeah.
not to my knowledge.
No, it has not been cut?
I don't want, not to my
Not-
knowledge.
not to your
Not
knowledge.
to my knowledge, that's right.
Good out. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Next, we have the Gaming Commission, Joe Hogue.
Good morning. My name is Joe. There we go. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Joe Hogue. I'm an executive director of the Indiana Gaming Commission. And I come to you today in response to Senate Enrolled Act number 43, which was passed at the most recent legislative session. And that directed and charged the Indiana Gaming Commission with contracting with an independent qualified gaming research firm to conduct a study to identify and assess the top 2 regions in the state where an owner's license to operate a riverboat may be located. So in response to that, the Indiana Gaming Commission issued a request for quotations, and Spectrum Gaming Group was selected as the winning bidder. They were also the lowest bidder. Spectrum, just as a way of background, is a nonpartisan consultant founded in 1993 that specializes in economics, regulation, and policy of legalized gaming worldwide. Their employees have backgrounds in operations, economic analysis, law enforcement, regulation, research, and journalism. Spectrum maintains clients in 44 states and 48 countries. So the statute was very direct on what it wanted Spectrum to look at when it was deciding which locations in the state would be best. And so I just wanted to go as a way of background over those 7 factors that were supposed to be studied, identified, and provided information on. That was the projected annual gaming revenues and the corresponding tax revenues of where that new casino would be located, the impact on the other casinos currently existing in the state on their tax revenues and their adjusted gross revenues, the patronage and gaming the patronage and gaming revenues from out-of-state visitors, the impact of a new casino on the region's tourism industry, the impact on the horse racing industry, the impact assessment of a potential tribal casino in the region, and impact of a potential tribal casino on revenues. And so those were the factors that we wanted the Spectrum to look at. And the study, which you've been provided, provides a wealth of information, so I'm going to try to stay at a very high level today. But just briefly, to kind of look through the methodology of what Spectrum did to come up with these conclusions is they looked at public reported gaming data that's not only from the American Gaming Association, but also the National Indian Gaming Association. They looked at IRS data related to adjusted gross incomes, back data to every zip code that was identified. And lastly, but most importantly, they received player data from every state licensed casino in Indiana. That data was provided to the Gaming Commission, which then de-identified that data, grouped it all together, and provided it to this research group. And from that data, they were able to map visitation and revenues back to each zip code, including those zip codes outside the state. So where were the people in Indiana coming from when they came to our casinos? And by mapping that data, they also were able to identify the source of the casino revenue from those visits. And so just as another thing to remember, and the study spends a little time on, is to remember where we were in 1993 with the original Riverboat Gaming Act versus where we are today. I mean, also, more importantly, to think about where we are in context to what other states surrounding us are doing. And so since the original act in 1993 and the original casino opening on December the 7th of 1995 in Evansville, Kentucky has added 13 historical horse racing casinos. Illinois has went from 9 casinos to 17 casinos and added over 48,000 VGTs. Michigan has added 4 tribal casinos since 2007, and Ohio has added 10 casinos since 2012. Basically, in essence, saying we were back in 1993. We weren't the only game in town, but we were leading in that industry, especially when it came to the Midwest. And so, things that made sense back in 1993, if you were going to reorganize and do that today, may not make the most sense. And so, with that, the 2 regions the study identified, which would be, and for lack of a better term, ideal to locate a casino, would either be downtown Indianapolis or a point north of Fort Wayne. And so the study makes great pains to provide that it does not identify a specific geographic point of where that casino should be. So for the purposes of a downtown casino, they identify the proxy point as the State House. For a proxy point for Northeast Indiana, they identify I-69 and State Road 8. So just want to provide some color to that. And so if you were to open a casino in downtown Indianapolis, what this information here is telling you is that the adjusted gross revenues that is projected for that casino would be $493 million. That would equate to $170 million additional state tax dollars, both with the wagering tax and the supplemental tax, but would not take into account any local development agreement. If you were to open a casino in Northeast Indiana at a point north of Fort Wayne, you would expect the adjusted gross revenues from that casino to generate $204 million, which would equate to $61 million in additional state tax revenue. So another important factor to think about and consider is, and the study goes into, is, well, what happens to the existing casino structure we have? What revenues will be taken from those casinos if we open up a new one in downtown or a new one in Northeast Indiana? And approximately $140 million would be drawn from the current casino structure if you were to open either of these casinos. Study makes plain, it talks a lot about, just like in real estate, what's the most important factor of what casino you go to? Location, location, location. And so think just historically again back when there was, maybe only 1 or 2 casinos in the state. Now, for many of these casinos, whether you're coming from out of state or in state, you're going to go to the first one that's closest to you. You're not going to typically drive by 1 or 2 casinos to go to that third one. The I guess, aberration from that would be if you wanted to see something that's new and shiny. For example, the Terre Haute Casino, lots of play was going on out there because people wanted to go out and see what the new casino was like. But overall, location will dominate where a patron of a casino will go if they choose to go and visit. So again, looking at this, the existing structure, so a new casino in downtown Indianapolis would take $140 million from the current casinos. Again, if you just look at location, the 2 closest casinos to that downtown proxy point, Shelbyville is 27 miles from that proxy point. Hoosier Park and Anderson is 44. So the study goes into a little bit of this consideration when it talks about the effect on horse racing, but if the bulk of the revenues were taken from those 2 facilities, then you could see anywhere from a 20 to 25% reduction in revenues from those 2 casinos, which are both owned by Caesars. So if you look at the Northeast data point, it's a much different story. There, you would only find a 15-minute lessening of revenues for those casinos that are currently located in Indiana. And that's essentially just saying those people up in that area of the state aren't going to Indiana casinos. They are to a $15 million. That's not a small number, but in context of either they're going up to Michigan or they're going to Ohio. And so opening a casino in Northeast Indiana would have the less effect as compared to the downtown Indianapolis proposal. Another thing that the study looked at was if Rising Star was relocated, and essentially the study provides more detail, but at a very high level, that casino on average has about $42 million in adjusted gross revenue. If you were to move, close, do whatever with that casino, that it was no longer functioning, $32 million of that money of adjusted gross revenue would stay in Indiana. $8 million of that would go to Ohio or Kentucky, and about $1 million of that would be what they called abandoned. In essence, I'm a local to that community down there. The only casino I'm really ever going to want to go to is that one. If it's not here, then I'm not going to want to go. In brass tacks, what that would mean as far as tax revenues for the state of Indiana, if you closed it, it would be a lessening of about $1 million. So again, that goes over that. New tax revenue for a downtown casino would be $170 million, $61 million for a point in Northeast Indiana, and the loss of Rising Star would count towards a negative $1.1 million in gaming receipts. So as far as looking at the impacts of out-of-state visitation and tourism, largely, again, because of the competition that's going on in the casino industry, both in-state and out-of-state, again, you don't see a lot of people traveling to go to casinos. However, the study also noted that it would be significant to bring in that tourism if the casino was located at or near a regional convention center. So think about, in essence, like you're coming in downtown Indianapolis for this example, for a convention. You go to the convention for a couple days. You're going to stop by the casino maybe one night to enjoy some entertainment. So that would be a key factor, but just placing a casino in an area that is not connected to that regional convention center is not going to drive visitation or consumers from outside the state, because now we're surrounded by states that are involved in gaming. And so there's not that, minus the new, bright, and shiny, there's not that desire as much anymore to come to Indiana to travel specifically to go to a casino. The study talks a little bit about defining tourism, and one of the, for Spectrum, what they would use if somebody's going to travel more than 90 minutes, another way they looked at it was if you consider a tourist to be any patron who visits from outside the county, 80% of the AGR at a new downtown Indianapolis casino would be classified as from tourists. If that was a Northeast Indiana casino, that would be 95%. But obviously, when you think about it, anybody coming from the donut counties to downtown Indianapolis would then, under that definition, be considered a tourist, and I don't think that's necessarily what we're thinking about when we talk about tourism. So, study also talks a lot about the impact of a tribal casino. Very high level for a downtown casino, a tribal casino with the Miami tribe of Oklahoma up in that Fort Wayne area. Having both of those go on at the same time would have no effect to the downtown casino. That obviously logic applies to that. For the Northeast Casino, it does have a dramatic effect. So remember, we talked about just in a vacuum, opening a casino up there could potentially have the effect of having $204 million in adjusted gross revenue and equate to $61 million in state taxes. If the tribal casino would open at or around that same time, those numbers for state tax dollars would drop from 61 million to 6. And so there are a number of processes and both legal obviously, but state and federal before a tribal casino could open in Indiana. That's with the Department of Interior, with the, obviously with the federal government, with our body, with the General Assembly, in order to enact Class 3 gaming. Class 3 gaming is in essence what you think about when you think about a casino, blackjack, craps, slots, and things of that nature. Before they would be able to have a Class 3 gaming license in Indiana, that would need to be approved by the state legislature and signed by the governor. The executive branch could not do that in a vacuum. And so for those of us who've been in Indiana and serving a while, this is similar to what we saw with the Pokagon back in 2018, 19. They started as a Class 2 casino, and then thereafter applied to the state, worked with the state, and eventually we came to an agreement, which essentially for the Pokagon, for 8% of their EGDs, which is a fancy word for a slot machine, that gets paid to the state. But the reason why the tribal casino would adversely affect a commercial regulated casino is because of the less tax, where Indiana tax for a commercial casino on the wagering side starts at 10 and can go all the way up to 40. So while that casino is obviously paying tax to the state to acknowledgement of the privilege of having that license, the tribal casino is not paying as much tax, and so they can funnel that tax into marketing, to comps, to bring those players in. They can be much more aggressive in bringing the public in. And so that's what the study really dealt with when they talked about what would an impact be if you had a tribal gaming casino in Northeast Indiana as it relates to a possible commercial casino there. The last thing that the study took a look at and talked about was what would be the impact to horse racing in Indiana if you would do that. Just as a brief refresher and background, at our two racinos, both at Shelbyville and Hoosier Park, the first 12% of that AGR goes to the horse racing industry. The horse racing industry uses that money to both invest in purses for the winnings of the different races that it goes on, but also it also offers incentives to breed and own Indiana-bred horses. And so a 2022 study by Purdue, which this study by Spectrum noted, is that the economic impact to Indiana of the horse racing industry is about $2 billion. And so then you would ask, well, what would happen if you would open up a downtown, either a downtown casino or I guess a casino in Northeast Indiana? For Northeast Indiana, you're looking about a loss of $1.7 million to the horse racing industry. If you're talking about opening up one in downtown Indianapolis, again, think about location. If I'm on the west side of Indianapolis now and I usually go out to Shelbyville to enjoy gaming, if I've got one downtown, I'm usually not going to bypass the downtown one to get to Shelbyville. I'm just going to go downtown because location, again, rules the day. And so at a high end, at a high end, the study projected it would have a $17 million annual effect on the horse racing industry. At a low end, it would have about a $10 million effect. And one of the things it cited, it would take Indiana from somewhere between, we now consistently have about the 10th highest ranking in average purse in the U.S., and that would take us down to about the 19th average purse in the state. And so it also, again, would go to affect the incentives that for you to breed and own Indiana horses and race them at our tracks. So this is just information that I've already gone over, but again, it has a wealth of facts that it cites, is very thorough, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that anybody might have at this time.
Yeah, so let's talk about the tribal for a minute, because I'm a little confused. So let's start with the Pokagons.
Okay.
So if they're a recognized tribe, but they have a six-county region.
16.
16, I'm sorry, 16-county region, correct. And their furthest to the east is, I believe, Kosciuszko County. So it's my understanding that if they put land in trust in any of those counties, that they can open up another casino because they're already recognized. Okay?
I think They couldn't just, I think they would need some kind of work with both the Department of Interior and with the state of Indiana before they would actually do that. Couldn't be, that could just happen overnight.
Well, with the state of Indiana, it'd only be a
8%.
compact. What I haven't figured out is do they have to sign a new compact, or is their current compact cover, just carry over to a new casino?
On that specific point, my gut would tell me that we would need to alter the original compact.
Correct.
But if I'm incorrect on that, I will follow back up
No.
with you.
But my point I'm trying to make is they're recognized different from the Miami. So if they put land in trust, they can already build a casino. Just to do anything more, they would have to have a compact with us. The Miamis are recognized different. I got this whole documentation on how this works. The Miamis are recognized different. So they already have land in trust, but they can't just put a casino up because they're not recognized the same way. So it was my understanding that even to do, I have this in writing somewhere, that even to do a casino in Indiana, that the state would have to sign off because of language that we put in legislation many years ago, thanks to Senator Kinley's foresight, that the state would have to sign out before they could even do a casino in Indiana, even though they have land in trust.
For a Class 3 casino, again, which is a casino we're thinking about, a normal everyday Hoosier is thinking about, yes, they would need to have that compact that the state would negotiate with them. They would also have to do a number of different issues with the Department of Interior. For a Class 2, they would need to do things like an economic impact statement. They would have to apply. They would have to apply notification to the commission. But I do not believe they would, quote, need the state's approval or enter into a compact for a Class 2 casino. As a very high level, the difference between a Class 2 and a Class 3 casino is a Class 2 casino would offer basically two types of games. They would offer poker, Texas Hold'em, not anything backed by basically the casino would be taking a cut of it like they would in a normal casino. They would also, what we call in the industry, they would offer bingo-based gaming where it would look like a slot machine to the average person going in, but the technology in the background to determine whether it was a winner would be based on a game of bingo, and you would be competing against other people that were playing at the same time and not against the house like you are in a normal slot machine thing that you're thinking about in your, yeah. But I will concede it does get, tricky, Class 2, Class 3, and with the requirements. But what I can also say is that there's, different articles noted, especially in the study about, are there any intentions up there with the Miami? I have not seen or heard anything. So I know that kind of answers your question. If I need to color in anything else, but if you want to, with your document, I'm sure I would love to connect and make sure our notes.
Yeah,
look the same.
I'll get you a copy of it. Some legal document about how this would work with the Miamis as opposed to the Pokagons, based on how they're recognized differently.
I do know that there's two Miamis. There's the Miami of Indiana and there's the Miami of Oklahoma. The Miami of Oklahoma are federally recognized, but I believe the Miami of Indiana are not.
Correct, and it's the Miami of Indiana that has the land in trust, I think, isn't it?
I believe it's the Miami of Oklahoma that have it in trust.
Okay.
So that's where wonky, especially with the level 2, level 3, then you get into the different Miami tribes and things of that nature. So, but I would love to connect, to color in those.
The second thing would be, we keep talking about rising sun, but just because a casino's doing bad, to say, let's let them move because they're doing bad. I mean, do we want them to run another casino? Maybe there's poorly run. So I think the real question is, A, do we want to have another license? And B, if we do, where do we want it to be? And then just open that up. I just don't like the idea of saying you get to move to here. I'd rather just be yes or no, we're going to do a license. We're going to do it either in Indianapolis or y'all bid on it or something.
And I would say that would be a decision for the legislature.
All right, I like
I
that
don't want to
idea.
offer an opinion where, yeah, so, yes.
All right. Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you did touch on that in regards to, I was looking at page 10, that Miami tribe of Oklahoma is federally recognized versus Miami of Indiana. And I think that was taken away in like 1896. So that is the difference in regards to that and in regards to that. So
Okay.
just want to make that clarification from my perspective. Thank you.
Senator Skotsky.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And also, I don't think it was mentioned for clarification also, if there were tribal gaming in Northwest Indiana, if that were potentially possible, that would be Class 2 gaming, but so that would
It would
you
normally
could-
start as Class 2 gaming before it would become Class 3. I don't know
Yes.
if you have to follow that process, but remember, the Pokagon started as a Class 2 before they were a Class 3.
So I guess what I'm saying, that also would include no gaming tables.
Right.
Right.
Class
And
2,
I
you
think
couldn't
that's
have
also
blackjack.
something-
Yeah, you
right,
couldn't have
right.
anything backed by the casino, whether, again, it'd be blackjack or even like a poker game that the casino offers to the, not traditional Texas Hold'em, but like a 3-card poker or Let It Ride poker. Those type of games would not be able to be offered in a Class 2 facility.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I did have one more question. Did this study take anything into consideration? So if a casino were to go to, a new casino were to go to either place, did it take any consideration to further potential for economic development that might develop around these?
It wasn't specifically directed to that, and when it calculated what would be the net tax gains for the state on that, it did not take into context any local development agreements. We have local development agreements for all of our casinos, but the 2 racinos in Indiana are not allowed to have a local development agreement. So I guess the study's very broad. It touches on it a little bit, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of color there.
Senator Gadora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Did the fiscal analysis include the negative social harms to our community, specifically the seriously addicted gamblers? I did not see the impact. How much is that?
It did not. It was not, the statute was very direct on what it wanted the study to look at, and so they didn't want to color outside the lines, and that's why they stayed within those boundaries.
And I'll be very concerned about that because research has shown, especially in the last decade, that young adults between the ages of 21 to 40, their addiction has increased significantly. And in recent years with the online sports betting, it actually took, even a more exponential rise. So the second thing, did the study analyze the fiscal impact to the locals in terms of increased demand on infrastructure, public safety, crime?
It did not.
It did not.
It did not. It just wanted to look at, wanted the company to look at the adjusted gross revenues and the corresponding state tax revenues. It didn't drill down any farther into that.
On the corresponding state tax revenue specifically, did the study look into the impact on businesses local small businesses, restaurants, bars, entertainment facilities, that their tax revenues their revenue will decrease, and consequently the tax revenue would decrease for them because the casinos would take that business away from them? Was that factored in the analysis?
Only to the extent where when I was talking about as far as tourism, if you wanted to really drive tourism, you want to locate a casino near a convention center to bring in people maybe for a Colts game and they go and then they go maybe to game and then to a nice dinner. But it didn't talk about like, will the average restaurant in downtown Indianapolis or Northeast Indiana, will their revenues go down because instead of going to the restaurant and going back home, they go to the casino, then they go to the restaurant at the casino and go back home. So
that was not fully factored in the analysis.
Right.
The final question that I have is the increase. I've seen some numbers that are, extremely mind-baffling for me. Hoosiers spent, I think, some of these studies have shown a wide range of numbers, so I can't pinpoint to exactly a number, but I've seen in the last couple of years that Hoosiers spent $17 to $21 billion with a B on online sports betting. Did the analysis look into the future of the gambling industry as far as tax revenues? Is it going to be the more generational difference of young folks more reverting to online gambling versus those who are used to different generational, preferences of, I'm going to go to the casino? And did you project a change in trend of utilizing or using online betting versus?
I think the casino, not really in response to your question, because I think what the study was looking at is, well, what is the law currently in Indiana, and you're not allowed to iGame now, and so it doesn't know if that's going to be something that's down the road or not, and so it was basing it upon what does the statute say now is legal in Indiana in order to game. So, but your assumption of the younger generation going on, I mean, obviously with technology versus the older generation wanting to go to a brick and mortar, it does ring true just logically.
No, I appreciate the constraint that you had to work within the scope of work based on the legislation that passed. I think that as well-intended the legislation could have been, it still misses key components of the analysis. And as I mentioned earlier today, as a former employee of FSSA, when I joined the General Assembly in 2021, before we received the federal dollars, the CARES Act dollars, and we had to slash budgets before receiving billions from the federal government, one of the first programs that were cut under FSSA were the programs dealing with the seriously addicted or gamblers and those who have substance use disorders and so on. So I made my position publicly that I will never support such expansion of an industry in the state of Indiana as long as there's no continued investments in helping people who will struggle from that industry. That's one. And second, the study did not really articulate the impact on the counties that you're moving in. So for example, Marion County has about 15.68% poverty rate. And if you take the same number, look at it based on neighborhoods, 1/4 of the neighborhoods in Indianapolis are poor neighborhoods. So the impact of gambling on poor communities is something that the bill or the legislation did not ask your consulting firm to analyze. What is the impact? And I can point to some studies that have shown that gambling exploits poor people who have higher aspirations of dreaming of becoming wealthy overnight by, using a machine or something. So I have serious concerns about this from a social and economic perspective. But again, I appreciate your focus on the scope of the legislation. And I hope that I urge my colleagues, maybe if this continues to be a discussion, that we take a more serious look at the negative social and economic impacts of such industry. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next, we have FSSA and Eric Miller. That's it.
Good morning, Chairman Mishler, fellow committee members. Eric Miller, Deputy Secretary and Chief of Staff of FSSA. Thanks for having me this morning. I have in front of you a state plan amendment for Medicaid. It's regarding juveniles who become incarcerated. So just to give a high level, we received a grant that basically supports the implementation requirements, but doesn't cover the actual benefits for what we're about to talk about. That's why we need the state plan amendment, is to cover the actual benefits. This state plan amendment is implemented to ensure compliance with Section 5121 of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023. This section mandates that state Medicaid agencies provide essential screening services, diagnostic services, and targeted case management for eligible juveniles within 30 days prior to their scheduled release date, as well as for 30 days following their discharge. In alignment with this requirement, the state would extend EPSDT services to former foster youth until the age of 26, and targeted case management services. This amendment will encompass an attestation state plan amendment affirming the state's internal implementation and operational plan. This plan will ensure that comprehensive coverage for screening, diagnostic, and targeted case management services is provided during the specified pre-release and post-release periods, 30 days on each side for eligible juveniles. The goal here of this is really to help improve outcomes for justice-involved juveniles and to promote that continuity of care. This proposed state plan amendment, our proposed effective date would be January 1, 2026. The fiscal impact is not included in the Medicaid forecast as it has not been approved. As you see on the fiscal impact, when you look at it on an annualized basis, the federal budget impact is about $150,000 a year, and I believe the state budget impact is about $80,000 a year.
I'll take any questions. Any questions? All right. Seeing none,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, anything from the committee? Are there any motions to remove any items from the agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Can we just take that by consent?
Consent.
All right. So if there's no questions or comments, this is our last travel meeting. Our next budget meeting will be in December. What? Oh, Dan's still over there. Dan Hughey. Yes, your last meeting. So, so Dan's been, he knows more about fiscal stuff than probably all of us combined. He's at IFA, and he's been a great partner to us. And I appreciate all the help you've given me over the years and our staff. And I can always go to you with a question, and you always have an answer. Maybe not right away, but by golly, and then within a day, you're going to give me that answer. So, and the way you kind of guard our debt and make sure we stay within the confines of keeping all our bond ratings, and that's probably way more complicated than most of us even understand. So, so Dan, we wish you the best. Hope you stick around somewhere and pop up somewhere close, but I just want to thank you for all your years of service to the state. So thank you. Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Dan is incredible. He has been around for a while, and I want to emulate the words that you said. Whenever we ask questions, he knows, and he's really helped steer us in the right direction in a holistic way. Never ever really seen or felt that he was doing any steering. He was about information, and you get the information and dissect it the way that one would do that. So he will truly be missed. I really appreciate his leadership and his commitment to public service, particularly taking care of some of us here on this committee that can get somewhat exercise from time to time. So again, thank you very much, and we will truly, truly appreciate it, particularly from my perspective. Thank you, Dan.
Senator Skotsky.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have to echo that, Dan. I've only recently gotten to know you better on the Budget Committee, but I remember you well from my first days in the House. You always came by, and you always said hello, and you always asked if there's any service you could provide, so thank you very much.
Representative Delaney. Yeah, I just asked if there was any questions or comments.
Well, let me throw my name under the "We Love Hughie" pile. But, and having gotten that behind me, yeah, I have a couple comments or questions that may relate to the agenda for the next meeting. I assume we'll do a forecast, will we? That's what I was going to want me to kind of mention that real quick. Yeah, and then I'll come back. Thank you.
Yeah, so our next meeting will be in December, so where we'll have the forecast. We haven't set a date yet because a lot of it depends on when the committee gets all their information, sets it up. It's usually the week before the holiday, so what's that, usually about the third week of the month, so I'm guessing it's going to be in that time frame. But we'll announce it as soon as we can, but that's up to our fiscal staff to figure out when they get the information to put that together, and we'll get it out there as soon as possible. But roughly the third week of December, and yes, it'll have the forecast and probably a few other items on it. So, Representative Delaney.
Yeah, a couple things on the forecast. If the special session occurs and if we deal with the conformity of state income tax law to federal, we're going to have a potential big impact on that forecast. So the timing is getting very tight if we decide to fiddle with that at this point. I hope we don't. I don't think we should be trying to conform those things at this moment in a rush situation. Similarly, we're going to have to know, I hope, what's happening, and if anybody can tell us now, what's happening to these 5% cuts. They're supposed to happen in two different ways with our state agencies. Are those goals being met, and what will that impact on our forecast?
Chad?
I'll speak to the 5%. Yes, at the moment, we've got the 5% reserve held on agencies as instructed by the budget, language added in the budget bill. A handful of those reserves have been released to select agencies, public health, public education, public safety agencies in particular, with reserves remaining on the rest. If you're looking for an exact accounting, looking at Lisa, I think I owe this committee a report at some point on that, but can provide an exact accounting on what's been done.
Yeah, I think we need to know, because whether you consider the goal lofty or lousy, we need to know.
I can give it to you.
We need to know that. I think that's important for this committee. A little comment on the big discussion we had last time about the Miami Correctional Center. I've been talking to the head of the corrections industry, Lloyd Arnold, not the corrections industry, the corrections department. And we're not up to 200 detainees yet, but I think we need to keep an eye on that. And about the 1st of December, there kicks in this guarantee that we'll be treated as having at least 400 detainees, whether we actually have a lesser number or not. I think we need to look at that number and be aware, and there's multiple concerns on that. And then lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, and maybe this goes to the public's health rather than our fiscal health, but the cuts to the CCDF program are causing a lot of consternation and hurting an industry as well as hurting families and children. So I hope we'll be able to give some consideration as to whether we've gone too far. I believe we have. But I see a pattern here. We started out on public health and we cut that back. We started out on pre-K growth in the pre-K world, and we're cutting back on that. I think this is a bad way to go, and it'll destroy credibility in our programs. So enough said by me, and thank you for your courtesy, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cadora.
Thank you. I'll add, and I want to echo one thing specifically that Representative Delaney mentioned. During the budget session, I've engaged with Senator Mishler multiple times on trying to detangle the CCDF funding from the On My Way to Pre-K, and they are entangled with one another. So an unintended consequence that I engaged with Senator Mishler discussing during the last budget session was trying to separate the On My Way to Pre-K eligibility from CCDF, because when we lowered the CCDF, when the General Assembly lowered it, it impacted On My Way to Pre-K. My biggest concern, not just from a fiscal perspective, it is the same General Assembly that passed law that we demand that children by third grade, they can read proficiently and be proficient in math. So if we're cutting funding for early childhood education, specifically On My Way to Pre-K, I'm concerned that we might be reversing what we are trying to do on the educational side. So I know that this is not today's discussion, but more for whether if there will be fiscal, discussion during a special session or for this upcoming legislative session. These are critical discussions from a policy perspective. So I share your concerns, and I look forward to these discussions with you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, if there's nothing else to be said. Oh, Director Rainey, we're side discussion here. The information you were talking about, he said he could have for the December meeting.
And the 5%?
The 5% that you requested, he said he could have for the.
I will have that. I can have that for the committee.
So with that said, we will adjourn until December.